Hey guys, Jake here, and back in 2020, you may have seen my Grid 2019 Perfectly Mediocre video. I really enjoyed making that, but in that video I talked about how Grid 2019 felt like an imitation of what Grid was, like it was some sort of third party that got the license and tried to make something out of it. On paper, it had the formula of a Grid game, but in practice, it didn't feel like one, nor did it have the quality of a Grid game. Now, I think Grid Legends has improved on that tremendously and is actually a pretty great game, but I don't want to talk about Grid today. I want to talk about Dirt. Shortly after I made that video, I started to wonder if Dirt 5 was going to end up the same way as Grid 2019 did for me. A imitation of Dirt 2, not really doing anything new, yet not making me want to play it at all versus the old ones. Then later, with more of the information coming out, such as the Playgrounds feature, I started to wonder if the game would stray too far from what it was and not really satisfy fans. And somehow, I think Dirt 5 screwed up in both ways. In this video, I want to talk about 3 key areas of the game, that being direction, graphics, and physics. First off, if Dirt 5 feels not like a Dirt game and feels too different from the previous titles, where does that come from? Well, it actually comes from Onrush, Codemasters Chessier's previous title before Dirt 5. Onrush was a car combat game that clicked with a few people, but not everybody. For me, Onrush is a game that I can see the appeal in, but it's not a game that ever clicked with me because I felt like I never understood how to play it. I've played thousands of hours of Overwatch, and I loved racing games my entire life, yet when you combine those two things, I just can't wrap my head around it. But the people that could wrap their heads around it usually loved it. And Onrush feels fine to drive in, has a decent presentation, good music and sound design. Overall, even though Onrush didn't click with me, I can tell that it's still a good game. The difference is, Onrush had a custom game engine built just for it. But to take that unique custom game engine made specifically for this very niche game, and to use it to make a game for an already established franchise that's on a different engine that is extremely different than your very niche game, is a bit of an odd decision, and I think it's a big root of a lot of Dirt 5's problems. And that, in my opinion, gives Dirt 5 sort of a shaky base game, but that more so affects the visuals and the physics. Game direction is less technical and more design. The game is trying to be a spiritual successor to Dirt 2 in so many areas, but whenever I play Dirt 5, I really just want to go play Dirt 2. The only true new feature that Dirt 5 offered was Playgrounds. Other than Playgrounds, there is not one new feature in Dirt 5 over previous installments that I can name off the top of my head. And even then, Playgrounds is a very limited mode because you can't really make proper racetracks with it, you can't have AI, nor can you really race in it at all because it's just for time trials. I guess with Dirt 5 they were just trying to appeal to the people that like the previous Dirts, but what's funny is while they tried to make an imitation, they didn't satisfy those people at all. I was looking at some Dirt 5 screenshots earlier today, and I noticed that in the pre-release screenshots and in the game's photo mode that actually shipped with it, the motion blur makes the game look extremely different than it does when you're actually playing it. Then I realized the reason why the game looks much better in these screenshots is because the cars look like they're going so much faster than they do in the actual game. Dirt 5's track and physics design is very, very different. It's closer to gravel, yet gravel still feels faster than Dirt 5. It feels like Dirt 5 has barely any areas where you can actually gain speed. Instead, it feels like I'm just constantly going around slow turns on nearly every track. The extremely close and aggressively swaying camera doesn't help with that either. It's made to actually complement the turns, but at the same time, I feel like it's a bit too close, and if you try to make it far, it doesn't really help the issue because it just extends the camera back further and increases the angle up a little bit. Dirt 5 doesn't just lack sense of speed, but it also has a general strange environment design, and this is where I wanted to get to the visuals. The big problem I noticed with Dirt 5's environment design, even before release, was the fact that it's a lot going on at once. All of the effects such as fireworks, fire machines, confetti, etc. seems to all be going on at the same time instead of particular moments. And on top of this, it's trying to add to the environment of an intense race event, but at the same time, the crowd doesn't really do anything. It doesn't even feel like there's a crowd in the stands at all in Dirt 5. And while you have all the effects up to 100 all the time, the overall colors of Dirt 5 in the environments don't look colorful, but rather gaudy. Every color in the game looks a bit too oversaturated, a bit too intense. There's no real balance of color on the environments, and that, I think, is why Dirt 2 is a better looking game. Trust me, I've had plenty of discussions before where I will criticize a game's graphics, but I get told that this game has this type of reflections, it has this newer lighting, and other different new fancy measures of making graphics look good, but if the game doesn't implement them properly, and overall isn't as pleasing to the eye as a game from 2009 on 7th-gen consoles, then do those technological advancements really play an important role in the game? But when we talk about technical advancements, of course, Dirt 5 has a bunch of weather and time options, but if you try to play with a rainy, sort of muddy, overcast setting in the day, it ends up looking awful. It's usually the game's worst setting. Some games in general tend to suffer with midday lighting, and Dirt 5, I think, does as well. It feels like shadows and global illumination on the trees, bushes, vegetation in general, etc. are just missing. So in general, the visual design in Dirt 5 is one of those things that makes me think, why am I not just playing Dirt 2 instead? But funnily enough, while Dirt 5 tries to be a copy of Dirt 2, Dirt 2 did its presentation style so much better. Dirt 2 nailed the festival setting with the trailer going all around the world. And come on, those 3D menus are absolutely amazing looking. I would love for them to come back, and honestly, anything Codemasters has done afterward feels cheap in comparison. Playing Dirt 2, Grid 1, Grid 2, and going around the menus feels more futuristic and looks better than I think anything the market has today. But the biggest and most important thing to all, obviously, is going to be the physics changes. One of the big controversies surrounding Dirt 5's pre-release is that it had no damage at all. Xbox 360 era Codemasters games in general are known for their damage models. They were, and honestly still are, some of the best in the industry. And Dirt 5, apparently in the name of difficulty and friendliness, got rid of damage entirely. In Dirt 2 and 3, while they had arcadier handling models, you had to watch out to not damage your car. But depending on your difficulty level, you could also have rewinds. And the amount of rewinds also changed depending on your difficulty level. Dirt 5's handling model I actually find to be quite impressive because I've never played a game where I'm driving a car, yet it feels like I'm not driving a car at all. There's some connection to the road, but I don't feel much connection to actually driving the car. It almost feels like there's no real feedback at all. Pretty much nearly every other racing game I've played feels like it has more connection to the road than Dirt 5. As bad of a game as Super Street or any other Team 6 made game is, I still feel like I'm driving a car more than I feel like I'm driving a car in Dirt 5. Of course, that's not to say Super Street is better. It is not at all. But Dirt 5 has something weird going on with the driving model. Lack of sense of speed, strange camera, plus the strange steering, lack of damage physics with sometimes cars hitting you and either the weirdest reaction happening or nothing happening at all creates an extremely strange driving experience. And that strange driving experience on top of the mediocre visuals and the game just trying to be Dirt 2 makes Dirt 5, in my opinion, the worst game in the entire series. I know that might be harsh, but that's my opinion. Dirt overall has been quite a strong series. I was excited for Dirt 5 at first because it feels like the game I wanted after so many years, but the game ends up being an imitation of Dirt 2 and not actually anything new. But at the same time, Dirt 5 also feels very different than the other Dirt games for its track and physics design. And all this to me made Dirt 5 really disappointing. In fact, I think the main reason Dirt 5 was received so highly from critics is because they had so little to compare it to. If Dirt 2 was available on current Xbox and PlayStation consoles, and the reviewers got a taste of that before Dirt 5, I don't think it would have done nearly as well in the numbers. Because a lot of people praise it just for being another arcade racer, and that being a genre that they miss. But with Dirt 2 and 3 not being available on many platforms anymore, there's not much to compare it to. But for me, from my perspective, owning the first 3 Dirt games and being able to play them on PC, my standards are very high for this series, considering how good it's been before. If you haven't played the first 3 Dirt games, if you're on a modern Xbox console, like an Xbox Series X or Xbox One, you can get Dirt 3. Sadly, it's not been upgraded in any form, so it will be stuck at 30 frames a second, which hurts the game's fluidity a lot. But to me, Dirt 5 could be running at 120 frames a second, Dirt 3 could be running at 30 FPS, and I would still prefer to play that. So all in all, I've wanted to talk about Dirt 5 for quite a long time. And what I really want to hear is what y'all think of Dirt 5. I want to know what you actually think of Dirt 5, and if you've played any of the previous Dirt games. If you have, say which ones that you have played. Because in my mind, if you've played Dirt 1, 2, or 3, then you know what to compare it to. If you haven't, I think you're missing out. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.